What's good? Welcome back to Black and Published, a podcast for writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. I'm your host, Nikisha Elise Williams, an author, Emmy Award-winning producer, publisher, all that good stuff. Today, we're talking with Roy Glenn, author of The Deadly Sins and the master of urban suspense. Roy Glenn is a multi-genre author who is best known for his iconic Mike Black saga. Always having a very vivid imagination, Roy began making up stories at an early age. But his passion for writing those stories did not come until much later in life. He said, "It began with a thought, and after a while, the characters and the story became clear to me and began to play over and over like a movie in my mind." Is It a Crime is the first book in the Mike Black saga and became a bestseller. Other titles in the saga include Mr. and Mrs. Black, Retaliation, Deep in It, and his latest series, The Deadly Sins. Roy was born and raised in the Bronx and currently lives in Jacksonville, Florida, where he is working on a 4-book series project, The Path to the Throne. He recently entered into a partnership with Vision Quest Productions to do a series of short films, the first of which is Changed Man, based on one of his novels. In our conversation, we discuss how his first book was really a response to Waiting to Exhale, what self-publishing looked like in 1994, how he helped start Urban Books with Carl Weber, and oh yeah, how to finesse your books into Barnes & Noble, a real pro tip. Black and Published family, let's welcome Roy Glenn to the show. All right, so I always like to start the podcast off with this question. When did you know that you were a writer?
When did I know that I was a writer? I didn't know. The better question was, when did I know that I had an active imagination and should have been a writer? Was when I was a little kid and I used to just make stuff up. My grandmother told me, like, boy, you lie like a rug. A career, because I used to just make stuff up. So, and then I was younger than my two sisters, and my father didn't really want me to play with my two older sisters. After he caught me turning double dutch for them, he was like, no, you are not playing with the girls anymore. So I spent a lot of time by myself as a child, and I just had an active imagination. So that's where it started. I didn't realize that I could write something until I was into my second phase of college. I had left Georgia College and I went back to school at the Cab Tech in Georgia to go back. So I was taking an English class and I wrote a paper and I got a B on it. And the professor said, this is very good. If you clean up all the errors, I'll submit it to a statewide writing competition. And I said, but I got a B. And that was that. I settled for the B and didn't even think about writing it anymore. Yeah, that's the look I have now. Like, opportunity missed. But God's good to me. So he brought the opportunity back around. I became a writer after I got divorced. And I was complaining to my sister about not understanding women. And she said that I should read Waiting to Exhale, that it would give me some insight into women, because I'm like, I don't understand women at all.
So this is like 1992?
Yeah, this is like early on. This is early 1992. So she's like, then not all women are like that, but it'll give you a little bit of insight into them. So I read it and I got upset because it was kind of an exercise in male bashing. So I decided that I was going to write a book. And a couple of years later, when I actually got around to it, the story that I was thinking about wasn't there, but Is It a Crime was. So I started writing Is It a Crime? And then somebody told me it was good. This is 1994.
Okay, I got to go back a couple of ways because one,
Okay,
how old were you when you were making up all of these stories? You know my son Mylan, and so he's 5 now. So he makes up elaborate stories, and I have learned to determine when he's telling me the truth and when he's just making stuff up by how he tells the story and where he pauses in the story, whether it's true. So like at first I was really concerned about things that were happening to him. And then I was like, wait, no, he's making all of this up just to keep me entertained. So how young were you when you were making up these stories?
I guess 7 or 8, maybe 9.
Okay.
It got more intense. I started actually, when I started to really appreciate movie making, I would make up movies and be the star of them. So, and this is like when I was in my like 10, 11, 12 years old. I used to imagine myself as the lead singer and guitar player in a band. No, my guitar was a baseball bat.
I was going to say, do you play any instruments?
No, I have no talent whatsoever. Right now, you start laughing.
You're the lead singer and guitar player in the band, and yet you don't play any instruments. Mr. Glenn, do you sing?
No, I do not. If I started singing right now, people would think it was a comedy routine because they're like, damn, these sound terrible.
Wow.
This is it. This is my thing. This is what God gifted me with, an imagination and a voice. He's like, you too many lines already. No, get out of here. I gave you and a voice. Go on, get it.
All right. So I want to go back. I want to go back to the college story because you said you got to be, and you refused to revise it to have it submitted to statewide contests or whatever. How do you look back on that story now, knowing that the biggest part of writing is rewriting and editing?
That, like I said, it was an opportunity missed because I could have gotten to where I am a lot sooner, but maybe not, because it would fundamentally change what I write had I gotten into it at 20 as opposed to 34. There's a whole different set of life experiences that I had at 34 that I had no clue about at 20.
But do you think those experiences made you better when you finally did sit down to write?
Yeah, because I had more knowledge. What I was good at when I was 20 was reading it and rewriting. It was a college paper, so I just rewrote what everybody else said and put it in my own words. So it didn't require any of my imagination. There was no me in there. Here are the facts. I just put it in a good way that she enjoyed. So, but as far as the editing is concerned, had I had taken advantage of that opportunity, then I would be so much further ahead because I didn't learn how to edit until I got a content editor. And back in the days when I started, there was no computer. That Word didn't have that nice little grammar program. So you turned in a stack of paper and you got back a stack of paper with marks on it. And you had to enter your changes. And you get tired of entering the same change over and over again. So you actually learn there's supposed to be a comma after that. So I learned a lot of editing just by having to do it.
Yes, my first 4 novels were all done on paper by your wife, who is my copy editor, and in red ink. And so, but I could always tell when she got into the story because then I would have less changes. And so I was like, okay. And then I would know that she took a break and then came back to it when I had more after those few pages where she had gotten into it, gotten into the story.
Yeah, that is, and that is a lesson I learned at Is It a Crime because I've had Is It a Crime got edited more times than I can count before I published it, before I self-published it. And then it got re-edited and re-edited again when it got published by first by Black Print and then by Urban. But one editor told me, and he told me this after I paid him, that you may want to look at chapter 29 because I really got into the story, so I don't know how much editing I actually did there. Really? Really? So there were some choice words there. I know that I had some choice words for him, but it taught me something, that no matter how many times a document gets edited, there's human error in there. There's always an opportunity for human error. So the acceptable industry standard is 5 errors, supposedly. But no matter how many times you read a book, you can always find something that somebody missed. So it's not a science. It's you do the best you can.
We'll get to editing again in a moment. Do you remember the book that you had thought of after you finished reading Waiting to Exhale that you eventually abandoned? Or did you really abandon it because you have so many now?
Yeah, when I actually got around to writing Is It a Crime, and in the second rewrite, I included a chapter where I allowed one of my characters to do a little female bashing, but it was a half-hearted effort. It didn't last very long. And it was just like, this was supposed to be the point of the story, Roy. You need to include this. So I let him have a few lines and then moved on with the story because it wasn't that important to me after 2 years.
Okay. So let's get to Is It a Crime? It's 1994, and you have this story, this character, Mike Black, that has basically set the stage for your literary career. Why was it so important for you to tell that story of Mike Black and Is It a Crime?
It's what came to me. It's the story that came. And I'll tell you the story of how it came to me. You a Star Trek fan?
No.
Star Trek. So Star Trek, there's a movie called Generations where Captains Kirk and Picard save the world, basically. And Captain Kirk is like, maybe it's not the woman that I'm missing. Maybe what I'm missing is the big chair or the Enterprise. My concept was exactly the opposite. And because of where I was in my life, thinking that, I'm doing all right, but maybe I should have a woman to share all this with. So that's where the concept came from, was from where I was, from the original, I want to write a book, to I don't understand women, to that scenario where it's the woman that you're looking for and not to get back into the game. So that's where the idea came from. And the name came from a friend of mine who used to call herself Fast Black. And that's where the name came from. So it went from Fast Black to Vicious Black. And at the time, Black and Shy were two completely different characters. He wasn't the boss of this criminal empire, no, and she wasn't a $1 million drug dealer. No, they were street people. No, she ran a corner, and he was just the neighborhood tough guy. And as the story evolved, then they became who they were in Is It a Crime? So by the time I actually started writing it, they had evolved from the characters I first envisioned them to where they became, because I didn't automatically go to, hey, let's write a book. No, being the imaginative person that I am, that story from Star Trek came first, and a whole set of imagination stories came with that, and then you add in the Fast Black to the mix, and then different scenes started to come to me. And part of my imagination is visual, so I can see these scenes in my mind. So as scene lines up, and I begin to see the story, I'm thinking movie naturally because I see it. But I've never written a screenplay before. I've never even seen a screenplay before. But I have I've read a book. So I decided to write a book at that point. And then halfway through, somebody told me it was good.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept.
But you initially self-published Is It a Crime, correct?
Yeah.
And so this
I sent out a bunch of letters, bunch of query letters, and I got back all of them with a refusal. I got to the point where I would go to the mailbox, and I used to just rip them open as a mailbox. But after a while, it would just be a slow walk into the kitchen, and I'd open them over the garbage can. And I would open it up, read the rejection, and just let it go and move on to the next one.
Okay, but like self-publishing is not an easy decision in 1994. There is no Amazon. There's barely an internet.
You're absolutely right. It was a completely business decision.
Walk me through it. So like, how did you make that decision? How did you do it? How did it work?
It worked badly at first. I decided after getting turned down so many times, I decided, okay, I can do this myself. So then I started researching what at the time were called vanity presses. And it's what they call publishing companies now, but it's where you give them money and they publish your book. And my sister's like, no, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to give them your money, because the first one of the thing I got into like that is what taught me the real lesson. I had written a poem, and I can't remember the name of the poem at this point. And I submitted it to a poetry book. And you pay X amount of dollars, and they include it in their book. And coincidentally, my poem was the first one in the book. So I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. Everybody probably got their poem first in the book, and, order some more. I'm like, okay, I can do this myself. So I went out and I bought a book, The Complete Guide to Self-Publishing. I still have this book. And I ran it like a playbook. Everything I did, everything the book told me to do, I did. Only there were some things that I didn't know that I could have done better. So the main thing that I should have known that I didn't know was how to select a printer. And I went to the at the time equivalent of Kinko's to publish my book. So for the 25 books that I got them to print, I know you're smiling already because you know I printed the books, right? My book cost was like $11.75 for a $12.95 book. So there was that. And then I couldn't sell it to anybody because the quality was so poor that I couldn't sell it to anybody. I don't know if I still have one of those laying around. I might not. But first lesson was when I went to somebody to try to get it at their bookstore. And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah. He's flipping through the piece of garbage I just handed him. And he's seeing dollar signs. I can help you. I could teach you to do this and show you to do that, show you to do that. And I'm like, okay, no. So I just did better research and I found an actual book printer, and I did make enough money selling those copies that I did have enough to put down on my next run with some more money that I got. And I actually made my first run of Visit the Crown. And my next step was, okay, now you've got books. There were a couple of Black bookstores in Atlanta that I got into. And a friend of mine, Thomas Green, was the manager at B. Dalton in the mall. B. Dalton's, it's an old bookstore. It's
I remember it.
But he's like, yeah, you give me a copy and I'll get you in the store. And that got me in there, and a B. Dalton in Macon. So now my book is available in 5 stores, which was quite an accomplishment. Yeah. And then I found the 2 only Black book distributors, and that's what got me into it. Those Black distributors don't exist anymore. Wow. Because the Black bookstore structure fell apart, like when the chain stores, Walden at the time and B. Dalton realized that Black people read books. They started opening up bookstores in malls. And that was just a bonanza for me because there were Walden books everywhere. So once I got with the distributor and got into Walden's, and I'd already made those connections with the managers. They're like, hey, just get your book in with a distributor. So I got with the Black distributors first, and that got me into some Black bookstores. And then I got with Ingram and Baker and Taylor, and that got me in every place else. And then I was lucky enough at the time, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles had a new author program. And I got in on that, and that's what got me into Barnes & Noble. It didn't get me on the shelf, but it did get me in their catalog. At the time, Barnes & Nobles wasn't really Black book friendly. So they had a Black book table, and that was it.
I might get in trouble for saying this, but it's still not really Black book friendly, but go on.
No, it's not. You want to get in trouble for it? It's a fact. It is
I said what I said.
Mm-hmm. It's a very true statement. They are not Black book friendly. So what I would do is I would walk in there with my book and I would put them on the Black book table and go on out.
Well, okay then.
Now, so they're going to walk up to the counter with this book. It's not in the system. Why isn't it in the system? Click, click, click. Oh, we can order this. And that's how I got in some more Barnes & Nobles.
I feel like I might do this tomorrow. Like go to the Barnes & Noble at Town Center and just put my book on the new release table and then just walk out.
And walk out. Eventually somebody is going to pick up that book and walk it to the counter. They are not going to turn down a sale. It'll get added to their inventory at that point. And once it does, go and drop off another one. Go check back on it. See if your book is still there. If not, if it's still there, okay. If it's not, drop another one.
This is game. This is free game because I would have never thought, because I know I'm in their catalog, like their online catalog. You can go to barnesandnoble.com and get all of my books, but it's not in the store. But wow.
My book. After 20 years, you still can't find me in a Barnes and Noble.
And this is after you've gone from self-publishing, Is It a Crime, to major publishing, Is It a Crime?
Mainstream published still couldn't break it because there is a pecking order in mainstream publishing. The name authors got the hardbacks, and they were the ones who got that. So my paperback got not on the new release table because there was a hardback table. That's where the new releases were. New to paperback was where I would sit mine.
So talk about that transition from hand selling Is It a Crime, having a bad first run, making connections with these distributors, getting into the mall, and then getting a deal and a contract with, was it what you said, First Books and then Urban Books?
The first deal I got was with Black Print Publishing. They went out of business shortly thereafter when Carl left, because that company was started by the Black distributor, a partnership between one of the Black distributors and Carl Weber.
Carl Weber, as in from the 90s Carl Weber.
The Carl Weber. I met Carl at an author event, and at those events, the sponsors would let everybody get up and do their stump speech before Carl gave his keynote. So I get up, I do my stump speech, and I look in the back of the room, and Carl's nodding. So I know I got it. After he does his keynote, I go by to shake his hand, say, it's good listening to you, blah, blah, blah. He says, don't go nowhere. I want to talk to you. And then he talked to everybody. Everybody. I'm like, no, I need to go. But after he got through talking to everybody who was begging him for a contract, he got around to me and said, I enjoy what you said. I'm going to read your book. I'm flying to California. I'm going to read your book on the plane. And when I get back, I'll give you a call. And he called me and said he was going to sign me. So I signed a little 2-bit deal. And then it fell apart because, there were, Black people involved.
I hate that you say it like that, but sometimes we have to do better, Black and published. Sometimes we have to do better.
We have to, but, sometimes we don't get along with each other when it comes to money. Maybe that was a better way to say that. No, because everybody want to call the shots when it comes to their money. So Carl left Black Print, and Carl was like, I'm like, yo, what about me? And I'm like, no. If I decide to do something on my own, I'll give you a call. And he decided to do something on his own. And he gave me a call. So that's how we started Urban Books.
And what year is this?
This is 2004. 2003, 2004. So the second print of Is It a Crime came out in December of 2004.
So it's 10 years between your first inclinations to write.
And 10 years later, I was mainstream published. And 1999, I self-published it. Started a publishing company, published my second book, Private Deceptions. The Paragons by Cliff Chandler, and the 10-year initiative for the empowerment of Black America by Ted Pryor, under my company, Brittany Press Publishing. Brittany's my daughter. And then I moved on to Urban. But in between that, there was a lot of hand selling. There was 5 years of hustling. When Arvita and I got married, our honeymoon was a book tour.
I remember you telling me this.
We went on a tour of Black bookstores in the Southeast region. We did Georgia, that's because we lived in Georgia. We came to Florida, went down to Miami, then we came back up the other side of Florida and headed out 10 to Texas. And we hit bookstores along the way. That was our honeymoon.
Wow. So in all that time between hand selling your, I prefer to say independently published book, because I feel like people say self-published and then like the snobby could be like, ugh. So I prefer to say independently published book. So between hand selling your independently published book and, getting with Carl at Urban after, the Black print publishing fell apart, what did you learn?
The biggest lesson that I learned in there was that distribution is everything. Distribution is everything. Being that Carl, although he had started his own company, his books were still being published by Kensington. So he signed a distribution deal with them, which gave us access to one of the big five's distribution networks. So when Carl and I would go to sales meetings, we would go to sales meetings with Walmart and Walden's and Books A Million. And we're in there with the people who are buying books, and we're selling, okay, we're going to take 10,000 of those. We're going to take 20,000 of those. We're only going to take 5,000 of that. That's something that I cannot do as an independently published author. I couldn't get a meeting with Walmart if my life depended on it. So that's the biggest thing that I learned was when in the brick and mortar days, distribution was everything. The second thing that I learned about distribution is distributors don't sell books. So even though as an independently published author with my own publishing company, with a four book catalog, even though I'm with Ingram and Baker and Taylor, they're not out selling my book. It's in the catalog if somebody wants to order it. Otherwise, it's in the catalog. So that's the other thing that I learned, that no one is looking for your book. No one is selling your book until you reach that level where distribution is king. So now we didn't have to sell our books because now they are in the store with prominent placement, which tends to sell themselves. Now, back then, as it is now, if you walk into a Walmart, there are only a few books by Black authors, fiction. So we had that market. There were our books and the rest of the big five. So we didn't have to sell our books. They're in Walmart. They're everywhere. Distribution is kings, but now Amazon changed the playing field somewhat.
What was your biggest mistake or your biggest lesson that you learned in going between independently publishing and mainstream?
I really don't have any regrets about that. And because it was an all good experience. It did more for me than I could have done for myself. I was just fortunate, to be right place, right time, I think. And, being God's favorite son helps out a lot too. But it was a good experience going from one to the other, and going from mainstream, leaving the plantation and going indie has been all good too.
That was my next question. So tell me why, and why do you call it a plantation?
Because in the contracts that you sign away your name, your likeness, and your ideas. You have no more access to your name. Your likeness belongs to the publishing company to do with what you will. And if you have an idea, I get first dibs on that. You write what I tell you to write, and you have it done when I tell you to have it done. No, that's not freedom. Because at the time when we were early on discussing what we were going to do at Urban, I had written a book called Crime with Passion. It's about a lawyer. And Carl was like, yeah, well, I want to write some other stuff too, but Urban's what's selling now. So we're going to do this. So my mystery got shelved because Black people don't read mysteries. Black people want to read this drama because that's what we're selling.
Urban fiction, yeah.
We just went with the market. It was urban fiction and mad drama. If you had mad, insane, baby mama kind of drama, that was what was selling then. So the two mysteries that I had written, Private Deceptions and Crime of Passion, got pushed to the wayside until I got stronger as an author, and Private Deceptions became drug related because Private Deception sounded too much like a mystery. So it became drug related. But that's where that's why I call it the plantation, because you do what you're told to do when you're told to do it, and in the manner that we tell you to do it. There's a familiar story that I had that I won't name the name of the book, but we had an objection to the age of one of the author's characters. And we told her to change it. She said no. And we said, okay, we'll publish your book, but it ain't going to Walmart. And that pretty much sabotaged it.
Wow.
Good book. And the objection was valid because Walmart was like, no, the character's underage. Make the character 18. And she's like, no. Okay, well. Now I have creative control. Now I write what I want to write, when I want to write it, and I release it when I feel like it. I have creative control over my covers where I had no say in my first few covers. I just got covers. And at first I didn't have editorial control over my product. So I remember that when I got a copy of my book, I used to read it to find out what got published.
Wow.
Because after you make your changes, you don't see it anymore. You don't see the final version. It goes back to somebody else, and that's that. So, and I know personally, I've gotten some books back and I'm like, here, finish this, make this better, tighten it up. So I ghosted plenty of books at Urban.
How many books did you publish with Urban before you went back indie?
Me personally?
Mm-hmm. Not the ones you ghosted, but just you personally.
7 novels and 3 short stories.
So what was the appeal of the indie market when you went back? What year was that?
That was 2006 that I left Urban. And I left Urban over a dispute. And that's why I left the plantation. And at the time, I was going to retire. And that lasted until I got an idea. As soon as Commit to Violence started coming to me, retirement was out the window. And I didn't have any desire at the time to pursue other book deals, which would have probably been the logical thing for me to do, was take my name and my rep and take it to another publisher, but I just didn't feel like doing that. No. I just went and I published it myself. And I was doing all right. And then the ebook revolution came along, because I'd gone back to hand selling, and since I was used to it, I know how to do it. So I published Commit to Violence, Killing Them Softly, and Beneath the Surface. And then Kindle came along. And that was a boom at first, because Amazon hadn't started to hadn't started to drive the price point down. So I was selling my ebook for $7 and $8, which was less than the paperback price then. And so I was doing all right. I was able to put my daughter through college with some of that money. But then Amazon began to drive the price point down, and the whole Kindle Unlimited thing showed up, and that just drove the price point down to a point where, I write for love now.
Because I'm about to say, it's hearing you say that you put your daughter through college with your Kindle sales is a lot different than what independent authors face now going into KDP or any other on-demand book distribution platform. It's very different.
There was no KDP then. So you sold a book for $6, $7. That was your money. You're still getting 70% of that. So it's like $5, $6 a pop you're getting from your book. That's real money, as opposed to the 33 cents that Amazon would like you to earn now. And that's what Amazon would like you to earn, is 33 cents.
Yeah, I always take the 70% option.
Yeah, but that's not the option they want you to choose. If you do that whole beta thing, no matter what I put in, I told you I did box sets. So it's a 3-book box set. I put, just for laughs, this 3-book box set into that beta matrix. You know what price it told me I should sell it at?
What?
$2.99.
For a 3-book box set?
Yes, it's a scam.
Hoocha.
So Amazon wants you to price your product at $2.99 because that's where they feel they can make the most money. And they are.
And not you as the author, them as the company.
No, because if they wanted the author to make money with KDP, it wouldn't be based on their arbitrary rate. It would be based on the author's selling price. So I would price my book differently. I would price it higher But right now for KDP, you're only going to get $1 for every 200 pages. So no matter what you price your book at, it is not made for you to make money. It's made for Amazon to make money, but it is the only game in town. So
I won't say it's the only game in town. That's another episode, but it's the easiest to use, I think. And it's what everyone goes to when they think about publishing a book and they don't know how to enter into the industry. And so I guess you say, like right now you do it for the love. Should every author do it for the love? Going into this with no experience and no connection?
To do it for their own reasons, but going into it thinking that you are going to be a millionaire is false. That shouldn't be where you come up with, where you go into it at. No, because no one's looking for your book. And you're not a celebrity, so your name's not going to sell the book. So you're going to have to create a market for yourself. And it's a crowded market. So write the book because you love it, because you love writing, which is why you write anyways, because you love it. You love to write. And then roll the dice, see what you can get. Because you have invested time and energy and money in doing it. But I had the unrealistic expectation that I was going to write a book, and I'd watched television, and everybody writes a book and they have a book signing, and people line up around the block to come to this book signing. And that's what I thought was going to happen. That's what always happens on TV. So I was shocked when I was sitting there and people just kept walking by me until I started talking to them and learned how to hand sell. And those were the days when you could hand sell your product. It's hard to hand sell an ebook. Bookstores are few and far between now. I was riding on Atlantic and I see the Books A Millions closed.
It is?
Yeah.
I didn't know that closed.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Unless I was driving too fast to notice, but yeah. Bookstores are getting hard to find, so book festivals have become the way that authors are selling books.
Yeah, I did a lot of book festivals last year, 2019, and a lot of traveling for them. And they're not all worth it.
No, they are not.
The expense of being in the festival, of getting to the festival, depending upon where it is, they're not all worth it.
No, they are not. So you have to choose your events wisely. And you have to look at them, especially the ones that you spend money on and don't necessarily make your money back. You have to look at those as marketing opportunities. No, people that didn't know who you were now know who you are. You've put your book or your materials in somebody's hand that might think about you the next time they buy a book, or they may see your bookmark and say, hey, I want to read this. So that's how I used to look at those. But like I said, we used to be road warriors. And had it not been for a pandemic this year, that was my plan for this year, was to be a road warrior.
Do you embrace being an independent author now that you've been doing it so long and have 70-some books to your name?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it any other way at this point because I have creative control. And the way the market works now, I couldn't release one book a year and do the things economically that I want to do because there isn't a lot of money. So for me to do the things economically I want to do, I need to write and release. So that's what I've been doing.
And one of the books you've written is Changed Man, which you're going to be reading from. So where is this in the saga of Roy Glenn books?
Okay. Is It a Crime? And the quote unquote Mike Black saga starts with Is It a Crime? And at that time, Mike Black is 34 years old. At this point, where I am in the series now, he is married and has 3 children, and he is stepping back. So that's where he is now. The book that I'm going to read from came from a different series that I wrote, was kind of a prequel, a 3-book prequel of Mike and Bobby Ray when they were young men. So it takes place right when he starts to take over the gambling from his drug dealer boss and become less drug dealing enforcer and boss of his own family. So this is where he begins. The second book in the series, that book is called Hostile Takeover. The second book in the series, Changed Man, takes place after a tragic event in his life. And he just goes on a kind of a killing spree after that.
Okay.
And to the point where they have to send him away. And I'll tell you, what the event is. One of his childhood friends overdoses on cocaine in his apartment, and he goes a little crazy over that.
Yeah, that's traumatic.
Anytime Andre would send him to collect from a drug dealer, he would just kill them because now he doesn't like drug dealers. So he just killed them, which is bad for Andre's business. So Andre sends him away.
Okay.
And what I'm about to read, if I can find it quickly, is
you have editing, you can find
it. Is what he finally decides to be, to change himself. He realizes who he is, the position he is in, and that he needs to change. So that's where Changed Man is. So now I'm going to put my glasses on.
Okay.
And see if I can find. Here we are. I'm ready when you are.
Changed Man, here we go.
Flew back to Nassau and I went home. On the way back to New York, I had a lot of time to think and a lot to think about. I'd been gone a long time, a lot longer than I'd planned. I thought I'd stay in Nassau for a week or 2 and come back, but I've been gone for almost 2 months. I think a large part of that was because of Felicia and Cortisha, but it's more than that. I learned a lot about myself and who I am, and I learned some of it from them. Talking to Cortisha allowed me to explore thoughts and concepts and ideas through her sexy conversation that expanded my mind. I like that. I like smart women, which leads me to quiet, shy Felicia. She didn't talk anywhere near as much as Cortisha, but Felicia saw right through me. Cortisha didn't see me at all. Had she, I have no doubt that she would have gone and spoiled it all and said something stupid like, I know you're in pain. Let's talk about it. But not Felicia. She saw the pain that I thought I was doing a good job at hiding. And even though she seemed to understand and even had some insight into it, she allowed me the space to work through it. Or maybe it was just that talking about my feelings would cut into her fucking time. And trust me, Felicia Brown took her fucking time very seriously. I learned a few things about myself. I learned that I love the beach. I love the ocean. I love women in bikinis, but who doesn't? I learned that I love to travel and go new places and explore the culture. I learned that there are times when my facial expressions and my mannerisms gave me away, and that can't happen. If Felicia figured out could do it, she wouldn't be the only one. So it was something that I had to work on. I could no longer be prone to fits of anger and rage. I had to be smart. I had to be the source of the fucking wisdom, not the cause of the chaos. I was the boss of my own small but growing family. There were people that I were responsible to and for, so I couldn't let my anger influence my judgment anymore. I thought about something Don Corleone said in The Godfather. It was something that I needed to embrace. He said, I spent my life trying not to be careless. Women and children can be careless, but not men. I had been careless. What I had done because I was mad about killing Vicky, not to mention killing Silky for no other reason because he fucking deserved it. It was reckless, careless, and brought this motherfucker Kirk into my world. And more importantly, it brought him into Andre's world. Careless, reckless, and stupid. So it had to stop. I needed to be like the ocean, the perfect blend of strength, power, and calm. A quiet, peaceful man, but to have the potential to be destructive as fuck. That's the new Mike Black.
When readers go on this journey of Mike Black, the beginning to end, what do you want them to get out of the story?
Entertainment. People have asked me for years, is there a point that I'm trying to make? No, I'm not. I'm not trying to make any point. I'm not trying to do anything. These are not socially conscious books. They're entertaining. They're the only point that you'll get out of them is honor and loyalty and love for your friends and family means something. I think that's the point that you'll get in reading every book in the saga of that. It's about honor and loyalty. You know, there's sex and murder and violence, but they conduct themselves in an honorable manner. And it's more of a mystery series. They solve mysteries. They're bug mysteries, but
and we're going to do a speed round in just a second, but I wanted to ask you, because we've talked so much about the industry and being indie and not, and the barrier to entry. A few weeks ago, it was announced that, the Big Five are probably going to become the Big Four because Random House is going to acquire, I believe, Simon & Schuster. What do you think about that and how that will affect the industry of writing and publishing, especially for Black authors?
It narrows an already narrow window even more because there are only so many seats at the table. And with the declining profit margin that Big Pub has to work with because they can't hide their profit margin in paper in hardbacks anymore. Because that's where the bulk of the money comes from, is hardback. So your big name James Patterson or Roberts can't carry the publishing house on their back anymore because their money is dwindling. So when you finally get to your Black publishing niche, how many seats you got left? And with the sales the way they are you giving advances? A couple of $100, maybe. No. Back in the heyday, my advance was $15,000, $20,000. No. someone, when I did make an inquiry, because a friend of mine was agenting and had gotten with a publisher. And she's like, well, I can offer you $300. Really? 300? Not 3,000? 300? Yeah. But that's the state of the industry now. It's completely different than it was 15 years ago.
And then there's a whole publishing paid me hashtag where it shows the disparity in advances between Black and white writers. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that. But I know it exists from experience. And, I try to rationalize it, that our market isn't as broad as the larger market. We are a niche market. So they're not going to make as much money on us as they are on. So let's compare Brenda Jackson to some, and I can't even call a white romance writer's name, but
Nora.
Yeah, good. And the difference, and I'm sure that one gets paid more than the other. I don't know this for a fact, but I would make that assumption. And I'm sure Brenda's doing all right. But I'm be willing to bet you that it's going better the other way.
Okay. That feels like such a somber note to end on. Okay. We're going to do the speed round and we're going to come back to the final question. You ready?
Yeah, we can pick up something a little.
That felt so somber, like, we don't get paid.
I thought you were wait no money in this thing. Okay, let's go.
All right. What's your favorite book?
That I've written?
No, any book. Yours or someone else's.
My favorite book is always the one I'm writing now.
Which is?
The World Is Mine. I just finished it. So now I am putting together ideas for the next book, You Can Get the Money. And this morning I had that moment where your storyline comes together, where that one idea that you've been missing just hits you. So I'm pulling up to a store. I'm like, yes. And I ran home and I started typing it up like, yeah. But you got to watch your time because you got Nikisha. But you got to watch your time. So
I feel like I just got blamed and thrown under the bus for wrecking your flow this morning.
Yes, you did. But I was done because I ran out of ideas at that point because I put down everything. I thought, okay, it is 9:43. You have time to set up now. Good. So you didn't ruin it. You just added a little more pressure to it. Because I got to get this down. Because if I don't get this down, it may not be here when I get through with this chat.
Okay. I feel a little better about that now. So is it safe to assume that you are your favorite author?
No, actually, the Apostle Paul is my favorite author.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one of his books?
Romans.
Everyone loves Romans. All right. Favorite song?
Well, Romans is How to Be a Christian 101.
Yeah.
Favorite song is Automatic.
Okay.
My friend.
And your favorite movie?
Casablanca, starring Humphrey Bogart.
What do you do when you're not writing? Seeing as how you write so much.
Play freestyle and listen to music.
Freestyle like on the computer?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got 2,000 and some odd game winning streak going. I
don't think I've played Freecell since I stopped having a PC.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Freecell is what I do when I don't have an idea. When I'm like, you need to. That's how it was like. Okay, this is your time to write, but I have no idea. So, but you're going to sit here during your time to write. So, a lot of that time got to play Freecell until the Holy Spirit showed up and said, "Hey, what you doing, boy? Write something."
There's a story about Maya Angelou that she would go off to write, and she would always take a deck of cards. And when she couldn't think of anything, she just played solitaire until she got an idea. And she'd have like her paper, a thesaurus, and a deck of cards, and like a pen or something. And
right. So I'm sitting at the computer. So same story. I didn't know it was an original story.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in good now.
I don't feel bad now for playing games on my phone. I'm like, I should be writing, but I don't have nothing to say.
You don't always have something to say, but you're supposed to be, but be in position to write. Be open and receptive to it, and it'll come to you. It always does. Sometimes I hear this stuff coming from. Who writes stuff?
You do.
Yeah.
And so you've mentioned God throughout this interview and that the Apostle Paul is your favorite author. What role does faith play in your life?
That everything that there is, everything that I am revolves around my relationship and my faith in God. It all comes from Him. I believe that my ideas, my talent, my enthusiasm, everything that I've got and everything that I am is a gift from God. So.
Okay. This is something that I struggle with, especially with my first book. You write about sex, drugs, people killing each other, breaking all of the commandments, basically. How do you reconcile that with your faith, or do you?
When I first started writing, I wasn't the person of faith that I am. So there was that. And now I look at it as God knows what I write. The ideas are not my ideas, they're His ideas, because everything originates from Him and flows through Him. So God knows what I write, and He hasn't told me to stop. And I've asked Him several times, God, you want me to write something else?
Mm-hmm.
No. Put something on me? No. I would like to write my interpretations of Paul's epistles, but He just hasn't put it on me to write that yet. I keep coming up with new ideas for what I do. So I believe that all of us are tasked with a purpose. Mine's to entertain. So that's how I reconcile. I may be wrong. One day I may get to the pearly gates and those books you wrote. You might want to stand over there and we'll get someone to talk to you next.
I'm sure that line will have lots of good company, though. If you get pushed to the side.
You know what I'm saying? It'll be everybody be in that room.
Like, oh, you got delayed too?
What's up?
And you talked about this a little bit before, and even your routine this morning, it just kind of fell on you. The ideas come, but from where does it come? Do you have a specific source where your inspiration comes from other than God? Or is it just something that, like the Star Trek thing for Is It a Crime, like that was a trigger for you? What are some of the other triggers?
Everything and everybody, stuff that I watch, things that I read, I research a lot and ideas come from that. I read a lot of old gangster stories. So ideas come from that. They just come from different places, different things, different twists on an idea. And if I focus on something long enough, it'll eventually come. Because I knew what I wanted to do with this story. I knew what I wanted to do, how I wanted to get into it, and how I wanted to come out of it. But there was a piece that I was missing, and that piece defined the entire story. And it just came. It just popped right in. So I don't know where it came from. Because I had gone to the store, got to the store,
mm-hmm.
and there it was. So sometime between pulling in the parking lot and putting in park, that idea just showed up.
Okay. And my last question for our chat today. So you've written 70 some novels, more or less. That's a lot of words on paper. Someone somewhere has probably read all of those words or will someday. When you're dead and gone, what do you want people to write about the legacy that you've left behind?
That he did good work. That it's I never really gave that much thought. Just the fact that what I have thought about is that I'm here forever. A part of world history. I'm a part of it. That the history of the world doesn't get told without some small mention, a footnote about there was a writer named Roy Glenn. That in some historical record, there's me. There's a moment in Star Trek when they come back, they're back in the future, and they come back to the past. And one of the classical books that they read is the collective works of Jekyll and Suzanne. And those are classics. So maybe in the future, the collective works of Roy Glenn will be classics.
Like Shakespeare.
Yeah. That's it. That someday someone will say, yeah, he put it down.
And we're going to stop there. Thank you so much.
Anytime. I wish you all the best with this.
Big shout out to Roy Glenn for joining us today on Black and Published. Make sure you check out Roy Glenn's latest book, Wrath, which dropped on December 2nd, 2020. And if you're not following him on the socials, make sure you follow Roy on Instagram at Roy Glenn Books. That's Roy Glenn with 2 N's, Glenn Books. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on your podcast platform of choice. Also, don't forget to rate and review the podcast. Leave a comment, a positive one. We like those. You can also follow Black and Published at Black and Published on Instagram and Twitter at BLK and Published. And to keep up with me, head to newrights.com or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Nikisha_Elise. That's our show. We'll holler at you next week. Peace.